Alright guys, let's see. Let me get this pulled up here and we'll get going here. Alright, so first title slide, we're going to go over violence, alcohol, and completed suicide. It's got my name on there, so presented by Troy Peters. Second slide, just give you a little background on the situation. So suicide is the 8th leading cause in the United States. It's conceptualized as an aggressive act, as well as much of the studies between suicide and aggression have focused on personality traits or psychiatric traits. Most of these are going to be related to self-hostility or your aggressive behaviors toward your spouses or your friends or relatives. In this study, they are going to examine the relationship between the violence and suicide of these characteristics. Next slide. Just a little more background about previous research that they've gone over suggests commonality between neurobiology and the aggressive behavior. They've also done some scientific studies on the levels of your serotonin levels, so that hormone. If it's a lower level of serotonin in your bloodstream, there's a higher chance of having some sort of suicide attempt, as well as alcohol use correlates with aggression, which in turn leads to suicide in most cases. It correlates with, anyways. Aggression also correlates with suicide, and relationship between aggression and suicide is not the only correlation. I say that because they'll be talking about alcohol use throughout this whole entire presentation as well. So those factors will be taken into account. Their hypothesis for this study is going to be, I just quoted it from the case study itself. It says violent behavior in the last year is associated with a complete suicide, even after alcohol use disorders have been controlled for. And then they're also going to examine the effects of gender and age and those correlating with violence and suicide. Next slide. And go into a little bit of the methods. So a retrospective case control design. So this deals with a book that they got a hold of, which kind of gives you a breakdown of like death certificates, age, gender, all of that good stuff that allows them to kind of go through the variables that distinguish people from suicide and accident victims, etc. Also, it's gonna I go into it here, I guess. So, analyze data from the 1993 National Mortality Follow-Back Survey. So, this is going to provide your data for mortality, which has your registration of age, gender, etc., cause of death. And then their surveys are going to be based on a large number here, so 22,957 death certificates. These people are going to range from 15 years or older. And like I said before, sex, age, and cause of death, and certain age ranges and minority groups are all going to be in this follow-back survey that they're going to use. Next slide. After they do this, they're also going to contact the next kin of their descendants. It's going to be a telephone survey. They're going to have to give written consent and verbal consent beforehand. And it's going to have questions about mental health and healthcare utilization of their family member that got in an accident or committed suicide. Next slide. We're going to talk about the subjects. So subjects are going to range from 20 to 64 years old. We're going to compare suicide victims to accident victims. So your accident victims are going to be the people that got in motor vehicle accidents, driver, the passenger, operator, and pedestrians. And then your suicide victims are going to be from poisoning, falls, drowning, choking, those types of scenarios.